call me any of your mother's pet names.
Just another American who saw too many movies as a child.
Hello everyone, and welcome to After the Film. Driving right now, so I might not make too much eye contact with the camera, but today we're talking about a documentary called Can We Take a Joke?
If you think you have the right not to be offended, either change your parameters of what offends you, or just realize you're wrong.
And I've said in my recent reviews, I don't like reviewing movies, which is weird. And I'll tell you what I thought was good, what I thought was bad. But I like more talking about movies, talking in response to movies. That's the way I used to do it with my blog. Put the address up, groundhogdayproject.com, which ended a while ago because the daily grind of it got difficult after a while. And while I could imagine doing it day in, day out for a long time, as long as it was still just something I was doing for like personal edification, not able to make any money, not able to fit it into schedule with so many other things that I want to be doing, it got hard to say it was worth it. It's not that it wasn't worth it, it got hard to say it was worth it. But I liked having that voice, and this is important in relation to this movie. I'm not just rambling. This movie is about comedy and how it's changed, how we get offended by things. It talks about Lenny Bruce a lot, which is pretty good. It also talks about this thing they call the outrage mob, which is one of those things I don't particularly like. And I don't mean that I don't like the outrage mob. I don't like the conversation about it. I don't like some of the ways this movie deals with the idea of people being offended by things. It seems weird to be promoting free speech and having a voice and saying what you want to say, and then turning to the other side and saying, oh, but you shouldn't be heckling a comedian or protesting. Now, there are limits. Like First Amendment thing, the government should not be telling us what to say, what not to say. One of the examples early in this documentary is this college student, Christopher Lee, who wrote this play about the last couple days of Jesus' life, and it's deliberately offensive in many, many ways. And apparently the protesters that showed up were organized by the university because they, I don't know, I guess they were trying some organized censorship. And that's a problem. An organization like a university setting up censorship for people like that. However, the idea that a protest can't happen, or that someone who is offended in the audience can't stand up and say, I'm offended, or can't after the fact complain to the comedian or to the speaker if they're not a comedian. And you get plenty of political speakers that have this same problem. Just this past year at Cal State Los Angeles, where I was a grad student and a teacher, we had Ben Shapiro, bit of a right-wing, I almost censored what I was going to call him, which seems inappropriate, a right-wing dick, basically, who likes to claim facts because he is well-spoken, which isn't necessarily, that doesn't mean you're right, you know? I could get into whole rants about that, but he's not even part of this movie, so there's no point. But there was a protest about a speaking engagement of his on our campus, and the protest, I wrote an article for the school paper in defense of it. In defense of the protest. Now, the university had tried to shut it down at first because people didn't want Ben Shapiro coming to the campus. Personally, I disagree pretty much with everything this guy ever says, but I wanted to go hear him talk, you know? I wanted to go be there when protesters got involved. And I never even got into the room because there were so many protesters already there. But prior to it happening, like, they knew it was going to be a big thing, and so they tried to cancel it. And then his people were like, we're coming anyway, and so they uncanceled it. And he complained that they were like violating his free speech, except, yeah, it's a state school, so they can't necessarily turn down a club's request, and that's bad. But the problem is, then he also claimed that somehow the protesters were violating his free speech when he got to give his speech. He got to have an audience. Not all of his audience got to get in because the protesters were in the way. And, you know. But anyway, that's just a personal example as to that kind of thing is where I see the limit is. It's not that we shouldn't be able to be offended and we shouldn't be able to have a problem with what someone says. Freedom of speech, not free speech. Freedom of speech means, yes, you get to say whatever you want as long as you are, specifically with the whole fire in a crowded theater thing. You can't say things that endanger people's lives. But the thing with bringing up Lenny Bruce in the film is they're making a point about how things have gotten better. Specific words used to be outlawed, and because of ideas supposedly related to them, you know. And Lenny Bruce was convicted and was arrested several times in several different cities. And comedians don't get arrested for that kind of stuff anymore, you know. They get the outrage mob getting them fired from gigs. Now, there's an argument in favor of, like, firing a person from a gig if their controversy currently is so offensive that no audience is going to be there. But if your job has absolutely nothing to do with your life, see, I think with comedians there's a crossover there between their lives and their job. Same with some actors, for that matter, where they use their celebrity in order to get parts, and they use the parts to celebrate their celebrity, and things intermingle, and you get this sense of the two things being one and the same. And with comedians, it's absolutely who the comedian is as a person is part of who they are as a comedian. But if you're a regular person, they use this example of, what's her name, Jessica Rocco, who had a tweet when she only had 170 followers, and her tweet was taken as offensive, and she got on a plane right after tweeting it, so she didn't even know what was going on. I don't remember this either. It was only a few years ago. But by the time she got off her plane, she had become world famous. Everyone thought she was a horrible, racist person. And she had been fired from her job. Now, apparently her job was in PR, so, I don't know. Maybe it ties together. But if your job has nothing to do with who you are or how you present yourself, I have a problem with your off hours affecting your on hours. Hell, I'm a teacher some of the time. I'm sure, some people I know who are teachers, they purposely censor their Facebook content. They change their name on Facebook so their students can't find them. I don't make an effort to interact with my students online, but my student sends me a friend request, I accept it. The stuff I would post online, I post online. I tweet what I tweet. I like what I like. Well, sometimes I like things just to draw attention to them, but my point is, I don't censor the activity because I'm afraid of who might see it, or I'm afraid of how it might affect my future. Maybe I should be more thoughtful about that, I don't know. But back to the movie. As a documentary, it's well put together. It uses a lot of clips of a lot of like comedy routines and like stock footage stuff. It's got that one-sided thing that you get in a lot of documentaries that have political bents to them in recent years, where it's obvious what they think. I don't expect a documentary to be objective. I don't think a documentary can be objective. But there is... I'm not even saying they're polemic about it. It's just, that's how documentaries are. And it's like that. And it's obvious like that. That's not necessarily even a bad thing. But when you're going into a documentary called Can We Take a Joke? It seems like, yeah, they're making a point about how we can't take a joke. Because we've gotten too PC. We've gotten too tied into the outrage mob and all that. And yeah, outrage is a bit too simple when you have Facebook and Twitter, and they make a point of that in the movie, actually. So, I mean, chances are, if you're watching this, you haven't even heard of the movie. You certainly haven't seen the movie, because it's at one theater around LA, I think is the only place it's playing, so good luck. Probably buy it on iTunes or something later, if you want to see it. It's a bunch of comedians. A few of them really like. They show some, well, they talk about George Carlin, they don't really show much of him. Richard Pryor. And the Talking Heads parts, they got Penn Jillette. What's his name? Something Norton. Wow, I hit a blank on his first name. Jim Norton. Jim Norton? I don't remember. Anyway. Funny dude. Deliberately offensive. Good for him. Tying all this shit together, because that's how the conversation goes. As a teacher, and I'm teaching my students about what to say in their speeches, I teach speech. I tell them, because the book says, yeah, don't say anything offensive that's going to offend your audience, don't do that. I'm like, if you want to be offensive, be offensive, but you better do it on purpose, and you better know exactly what the effect is going to be. Don't accidentally piss us off because you're casual racist, Don't be misogynistic or patriarchal simply because you're a man who doesn't understand what you are. Put thought into your words. If you put thought into your words, I'm not that concerned with what your words are. Maybe I'm concerned, but I'm not concerned in the same way, Like they say in this movie a couple times, actually, it does say whatever you want to say. This is talking about comedians, as long as it's funny. My thing in speech, in formal speaking, is say whatever you want to say, but it better be on purpose. It better support what your argument is. It better support the ideas you're presenting. I run my classroom as a place where people are accepted. And so, yeah, it's a nice liberal, liberal indoctrination chamber of the modern college, because, yeah, I love that. But if you want to say the ideas we don't like, say them. Back them up with evidence, because that's how speeches work. I think that's part of the problem in this movie, actually, is the lack of evidence of a negative effect. They point out at the end that Christopher Lee is graduating college, or has graduated college, and has a job telling offensive jokes. So this protest of his play apparently didn't have much of a negative impact. It's like the film's argument is that the outrage itself is a negative impact. But isn't that exactly the same as being offended? Where do you draw the line? Who gets to be offended by what? How about we all get to be offended by whatever the fuck we want to be offended by? We all get to say whatever the fuck we want to say, as long as we put some thought into it, as long as we mean it. And if we don't mean it, it's perfectly reasonable to suggest someone apologizes. And you should want to apologize if you didn't mean to hurt people and you hurt people. It's like that Simpsons episode where Bart messes up Lisa's thing and he doesn't understand why he should say sorry until he realizes she put all that work into it. And that matters. The documentary is one-sided because we don't hear from the people who are offended. And I'm not saying I expect the documentary to talk to everyone on both sides. No, that's not how a documentary works. But there is a reason people get offended by things. There is a reason that racial slurs cause hurt. There is a reason that stereotypes exist. Stereotypes affect people. A reason that certain language has powerful effect. If you don't understand that, you shouldn't be on a stage speaking as a profession. Or you shouldn't be making documentaries. Anyway, if you don't like documentaries, go see a movie that's got a script. Or more of a script. If you don't want to hear a bunch of comedians defending offensive jokes, go watch something else. There's always something good out there. See more movies. Be offended by them if you need to. Or enjoy them. See the ones you're going to enjoy. See some of the ones that are going to challenge your ideas. Maybe even see some of the movies that are going to offend you. One argument they make in this movie that I like is that the response to bad ideas is not to get rid of the ideas, it's to have good ideas. To put more ideas out there. More movies in your head, more ideas in your head. You have room to pick the good ones. Good luck.
Lenny Bruce, he was arrested for what he said. I can't imagine that. But mother is that cool. Doing your show with cops on the side of the stage? Beat that, anybody ever.